Hey guys, just wanted to add in a video of something that was a bit of a revelation to me. And I feel so stupid because it seems so simple, yet actually something that I've really struggled with for a while. And this is about surrender. Like, what does it mean to surrender? In my walk with faith in particular, there's always been this message of, letting go, hand it over to God, surrender. And the last sort of 2 to 3 years have been particularly challenging, especially sort of the last couple of months. And it got to the point where I was like, okay, God, you say surrender certain things to you, or surrender it all to you, and I did that. I surrendered it all to him, especially with some of these challenges. And it only got worse. There were also people that had an expectation of me to bring them results, and it didn't really come in, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, Lord, well, I'm doing what you've asked me to do. Like, why is it not getting any better? And what I've learned was that to let go doesn't mean to forego. We don't get to forego our responsibilities. Whatever we're given comes with a responsibility. If you've got a house, that has a responsibility attached to it. A car, a relationship, children, a job, a business, it all has some sort of responsibility that we have to see to, under stewardship. It's a partnership with the Lord. He doesn't do it all for us. He partners with us to do these things. And, again, the people when they went into the promised land, they didn't just walk in there and then suddenly just go, okay, well, I'll just rest on my laurels and okay, God's just going to feed me grapes all day. No. They still had to overcome some giants. They still had challenges. They still had to sow. They still had to harvest. They still had to do all of these normal things that comes with the responsibility of having that land. And it's no different now. But the breakthrough for me was about learning what it actually means to let go and surrender, which is the result of whatever it is that I'm facing. Is that I do what I can within the legal framework of the country that I live in, within the contract of the business or whatever, and also what scripture tells me, because ultimately we have to make sure that we fall in line with the example that Jesus set for us. That, that is the ultimate example, is it not? To make sure that I don't sin myself. And by the time I've done all these things and I did what I can, then it's like, okay, God, I've done all my bits. Now it's over to you. The result is now yours. And if it gets worse, then I just trust that, okay, it had to get worse because obviously I can't see into the future. I just trust the Lord that there's a purpose to this. Perhaps it's maybe a consequence that's still playing out from something that I failed to do or something that I did wrong, for example. Because again, your life is full of consequences. We can't expect that you can be completely irresponsible with something and there be no fallout from that. Even as a believer, God's not just going to go, oh, okay, no, it's all right, I'll just clear all this up for you. It's like, no, we have to learn. It's all about becoming more like the image of Christ. So, that was just a thing for me that it just lifted a massive weight off my shoulder. That, okay, the results, that's the thing I can't control. That's the thing I just hand it over to him. Don't worry about it. I did what I can. And if anybody comes and chases me for an answer, I'll just say, look, I've done what I can. There's nothing else I can do. I've lost sleep and days where, couldn't eat and all this kind of stuff because I had to get results and I was trying to force a result. And all of that stress didn't really achieve to anything other than me just feeling a lot worse. So you can't force the results. And the other thing to remember is that, there is a line up between stewardship and obviously letting go. And I made a video about the distraction before, and this is kind of like the other side of that, where I was so fixated on the result that then it became the distraction. And again, it's like just trying to discover that line. And that's just, this was just a revelation to me. Do what I can within the framework that I've given as a believer. And just as a believer as well, doesn't mean that we just allow people to walk over us. We're not doormats. A Christian, if you look at the example of Jesus, he stood up for what's right. He stood up for the truth, and he didn't let people walk over him, but he never repaid evil with evil, for example. He was never deceitful. He was never, never did any or manipulate or any of that kind of stuff. So we need to try and be the same. But yeah, you know, as soon as I've done what I did, that's it. Okay, I can't change, I can't do anything else. That's it. You know, I'm not going to, you know, and if people then chase me for a result, I'll just say, look, I can't do any more than this, I'm sorry. And if they then choose to, I don't know, throw a tantrum or whatever, and, you know, whatever, that's on them. That's not on me. That's their issue. If they lose their business, well, what can I do about it? That's obviously, they're not meant to stay in business with me or whatever. You know, it's like, then I just have to accept that this is just part of the plan, which it is. You know, I can't see the future, but I'm sure one day it will all make sense. So I hope that this video was useful to some of you. If it was, you know, please give it a like. If you know somebody that could do with this message, please share it. Otherwise, leave a comment, or if you want to be kept up to date with any more videos such as this, then subscribe. Thank you.